All right, airspeed indicator and some blockages. So right off the back, we can see we've got a pitot tube, we've got a diaphragm, we've got mechanical linkages, and then our airspeed, what we read out. Good? Too easy. So what's an airspeed indicator? Well, it gives us our airspeed. Airspeed indicator. The airspeed indicator is a result of impact pressure and static pressure. You take the difference of that and you get dynamic pressure. So again, dynamic pressure equals the difference of impact, which is your ram air, and static pressure, or ambient air. Too easy. Okay, so basically what's going on is the diaphragm in the instrument is receiving that ram air from this pitot tube, and it'll travel in all the way through and it'll enter the diaphragm. At that point, what's going on with the static line is let me backtrack. This pitot tube is connected directly to the diaphragm, which will expand and contract depending on the ram air that is taken, while the static line is connected directly to the sealed casing right here. And that casing will always have static pressure, and it compares it to the ram air, and these mechanical linkages will move accordance and give you airspeed. Trying to make this as simple as possible. So let's talk about some blockages. Now, the airspeed indicator is the only instrument that uses both pitot tube and static port. What that means is that if one or the other fails, you could have different indications and it'll behave differently. So one thing I want you to remember is that an altimeter uses only the static port. If the static port is clogged, then the airspeed indicator will start to act like a reversed altimeter. So clogged static port equals reverse altimeter. So what that means is as you increase altitude, you'll get a lower airspeed. And as you decrease altitude, you'll get a higher airspeed. So again, static port is clogged for whatever reason, then your airspeed indicator becomes like a reverse altimeter. You increase altitude, you get a lower airspeed. As you decrease altitude, you get a higher airspeed. And reason being is that you have trapped static pressure in the casing that's constantly comparing with the ram air. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about if the pitot tube is clogged. So at the pitot tube, you have the opening in the front, and then you have a drain hole in the back. It's a very tiny hole that allows moisture to sneak out as air is going in. What happens when the pitot tube is clogged, and the airspeed indicator again is the only instrument that uses the pitot tube, and it uses both pitot tube and static port. So if the ram air inlet is clogged, so this is clogged, but the drain hole is open, then the airspeed will read 0. So this is clogged, but this is open. All the remaining air is just gonna bleed out the back, and the airspeed indicator is gonna read 0. Why? Is because there's no more there's no more impact pressure to compare with the static port, the static pressure. Another thing is, what if both the inlet and the drain hole is clogged? Well, the airspeed indicator will act as an altimeter, and of course, it will no longer be reliable. So as you increase in altitude, airspeed increases. As you decrease in altitude, airspeed decreases. So if you're flying an IMC and right off the back you notice that you're increasing your altitude, but you're gaining airspeed contrary to what you've been doing, you can suspect that is a static port blockage. Things that you could do for that is alternate static air. Another thing is, if you are flying an IMC and you notice that as your airspeed indicator just dropped to 0, then you can suspect that you have a ram air, or you have a pitot tube inlet clog situation, and it's just going to stay at 0. If you are an IMC and you notice that you're increasing and decreasing altitude and your airspeed indicator is acting accordingly, then you've got a clogged inlet and drain hole. Things you can do for that: pitot heat. Pitot heat. That's right before you're flying into any type of visible moisture. Turn on the pitot heat just to be safe. Let's see if there's anything else. That's pretty much it for the airspeed indicator. It's pretty straightforward. Nothing much. Well, comment if any questions.